Hello and welcome to Trekkie and Beyond, a Star Trek podcast. I'm Moneca.
And I'm Andrea, and welcome to episode 5 of season 4 of Lower Decks. Empathological Fallacies. Totally said that wrong, but you guys know what you're getting when you listen to me. So, this episode is all about the Cerritos going through a little bit of an emotional ups and downs as they have a little bit of a delegation aboard. The Betazoids. We love them. We know them. They're interesting. Let's talk about this episode. Initial reactions. Moneca, what did you think?
So this episode focuses on Taylen, and you know how much everyone that I really like her, her groundingness of and her Vulcan just sharp wit. So I'm looking. I really like the idea of this episode. I have 3 main points. Mm-hmm. She looks amazing for 62. Like.
I agree with your skincare routine. It's giving. We know black don't crack, but what's the thing for Vulcans? Like, well, come on, let us know.
Yeah, it makes me wonder about like Spock and like, yeah. Oh my goodness. So all the Vulcans age gracefully. If only I could. So yes. So she looks great, and I am just perplexed for a few other aspects of this episode. Like, why in a world in the 32nd century have they not figured out how to manage symptoms from menopause? Like, that is like puzzling to me. I wonder. We'll talk about this more and all the other symptoms that are revealed in this episode. And but grounding in this episode, there's a connection between the Next Generation series and Deep Space Nine. I went back to watch those episodes. They don't age gracefully, unlike Taylen. See what I did right there? What about you?
So I watched this episode like 4 or 5 times. I see the point of this episode. I really do see the point of this episode. But I could not help but think there has to be a better way of dealing with emotions. And not even like I don't even want a medicine to deal with menopause. I want acceptance, understanding. It happens. It's a biological fact thing that happens. And it just seemed like there was more, it was the way they spoke to them, thinking it was what they were going through. It was more condescending than understanding. And from I would expect that from a man to a woman, but not from a woman to a woman. And so that was one of the main things. I was just like, we're all women of a certain age. Don't talk down because you all go through something that's a different type of biological reaction. So that was my thought process. And then also I like to see Mariner in a good way. I'm giving her a verb. I'm making her name a verb right now. But I like to see Mariner in a way that is positive, in a way that shows that she's crazy. She goes out there. She does all these things. But at the end of the day, she does care about her, the other members of her team, other members of Starfleet. And so I really did like, even though she was like the minor point of it, that she cared. And then I liked the B story. Not necessarily Boimler's part in the B story, but I like that security. They showed us a different side to the security team. That was like, there's more than just protecting the ship. Sometimes you need to protect yourself and your mental health. And I did like that B story. So I like that it wasn't a stereotypical, we're just going to fight out all this aggression. It's like, no, we have other ways of relaxing and we're not just on all the time. So to getting into the meat of this episode, there are 3 Betazoid diplomat socialites. And these women, they like what they see on the Cerritos. But they don't like it when it's easy. They like the chase. They go, They are these stereotypical cougars. They want a younger man or woman, and they want to chase them. They want to pounce. They want to be like,
I don't think that that's the case for all of them.
That's true.
For one of them in particular is very cougar. But the other one, like, there's one that's very, like, more the alcoholic side. Like, each one has their own drama associated with them.
And they are on the ship as a delegation moving to another, and the Cerritos is taking them to another location. But what the Cerritos doesn't know is that the Betazoids are actually on the ship because they have the special mind reading ability to see what's going on with all these different attacks. And it's another callback to all of these ships that are so far missing or being destroyed. And we're seeing that other delegations, not just Starfleet, investigating like what's going on. And we haven't actually seen, I don't think we've seen a Betazoid ship go missing, but it still shows that they care enough to be like, hey, all these other ships, what's going on? Let's investigate. But I do like how they took the approach of they were just being alcoholics, but more of just to get everyone to relax and to lower their inhibitions so they can understand what's going on. Was there a better way of doing this? Absolutely. But would it be the lower decks way if we took the easy way out? It would not be. And then we also see that this episode has a lot of Taylin trying to get back onto her ship, which makes me think if she was lower decks and like a lower lieutenant and she is 62, how old is her captain? Or her old captain, I should say, because she's on the Cerritos now. And we can see that she is almost sort of tearing down the Cerritos just very slightly in a way of saying how she misses the Vulcan ship and how if she gets back her placement within it, that she will not act the way that she was before, that she understands that she was like, she understands how she was wrong. But at the same time, it's like, Taylin, don't knock your friends just to climb up. Like, don't knock them down to climb the ladder. It never works out for you because eventually you will fall. And then we have Boimler, who's just being Boimler and overthinking everything. I'm so sorry, honey. I can't protect you.
Okay, so at first I was thinking, oh, it's like the Golden Girls, but they're like much more party-ish. And then a lower that kind of realm. So they kind of made like 3 different stereotypes. So you have one that's the fierce leader, and that's played by Rachel Dratch, who and her name is Dolores. She's from Saturday Night Live. She served on there for like 20 years because I heard each one of these voices from what I'm calling the Golden Girls, the Betazoid diplomats. And I was like, I recognize these voices. Can't tell who it is because it's a different face because of the animation. But after the episode, I dived in deeper to find out more. And then there's Katrat. She is, oh my goodness, the principal, Ava Coleman from Abbott Elementary, who I really love. And that's Janelle James. She's also a fellow St. Tomian, so it was really nice to see her there, and also just bring a different energy. She was stereotyped as like the alcoholic, and she had the hat that was, I think, from a party in which she was like, it's 5 o'clock somewhere. Basically it's time to drink at any time. And then there's Katwi, who was flirty as all get out with both Ransom and Freeman. And she was really kind of pushing the boundaries for me into like, oh, this is much more mature theme in this episode. And she was voiced by Wendy Malick from Young Sheldon. She played the president. So it was nice to see these females that are strong in their identity. They were not apologetic for like, and Talin was basically like the page to help get drinks and to help like support them in their needs. But they were very sure of themselves. They definitely had some leadership qualities. Disagreed with how they executed it, of course, but it was nice to see strong female leads with a sense of self.
I thought they were funny. I like that they all had they each had like a different role. It was almost like they were all playing to different ways of relaxing the members of the Cerritos. Where when they thought that they were caught, every act that they were putting on immediately stopped. Yeah. So it's like Karat, while she was acting like the alcoholic, definitely wasn't. It's like they were hustling everyone. That's the word I'm looking for. They were hustling everyone on the ship, and they were hustling each one in a different manner. The moment the switch flipped and they took off the little skirt parts of their dresses and they were in shorts and had those electric batons, everything that we had saw beforehand did not matter. They was like, no, this is who we're like. We can get on task the moment we need to be. And as much as I don't like seeing my crew of the Cerritos beaten up, they handled that bridge crew like nobody's business. They took them down. And I like watched it like two or three times. It does look like they killed one of the Cerritos bridge crew members. And I'm not sure. I don't think they did, but the way the animation looked like when they were like taking over the bridge crew, it looked like they like slammed their knee on someone's head and his head went like.
Well, we've also learned that they can bring them back. So yeah, he's not really dead.
But it was like, oh, okay, this is serious. The one thing that was not smart, in my opinion, was when they took the ship hostage and they were going to go back to their home planet to like interrogate them. Why would you go through the neutral zone? That harms both you and them. Like that was one decision that did not make sense to me at all, because there was you're still in a Starfleet ship. There was no reason for the Romulans not to want to attack you just because you're on the ship. That was not a smart tactical decision. And I think if you just wanted to go back, you would just turn the ship around and go warp all the way back to your home planet. But don't go through the neutral zone while you're still in a Federation ship. That's just putting a target on your back.
I agree with you 200%. I researched this a little bit and found out that also Betazoid is on another quadrant. So I think the writers just went rogue. They weren't following really the map of the galaxy. And he misnamed a few things. I don't know. They were trying to create some danger, some border, some friction in the storyline. But your statements really brought up another point, and because they're Betazoid, they can hear each other's thoughts, and they don't have to speak verbally.
Mm-hmm.
So it was cool to see them talk to each other, but the rest of the crew could not hear them, including Freeman. So it's nice to see another species communicate, because y'all know how much I like to see the interpersonal dynamics of other cultures. I agree with you. I really like this scene in which they shed their gowns and became really the intelligence force that they are.
Yeah.
I'm surprised though that Freeman didn't know that they were part of Betazoid intelligence.
It's like the part of Starfleet that
Section 31.
Yeah, Section 31. I apologize, everyone. I am currently on allergy medicine, and I'm a little foggy, so charge it to the head, not to the heart today, please. It's like you don't know who's on Section 31 or who's in Section 31. So it's like I feel like it would be the same thing. They're undercover. And who would suspect 3 middle-aged women being intelligence like that? You know?
Right.
Yeah. And we see that Freeman fell for it, because she was like, we're all women of a certain age. Freeman, if you don't sit yourself down, how dare you use a woman's biology against them?
Especially because they're kind of playing the ditzy, like, party girls.
Yeah.
A completely opposite character or a stereotype.
They were fun. It was an interesting episode because I did not know what to expect going into it. So it was a very different style of episode. I think is one of those things where the writers made an issue by making up an issue, because this episode could have gone so much easier, and I think we could have learned something so much better, or in a different format, maybe not necessarily better, because like it's the mystery. Lower Deck is finally having a full like season long mystery, which I know you like, and so like we're trying to figure out what's going on, so we're all on edge and like trying to know who can we trust, who we can't trust.
Right. I just thought that we could trust the Betazoids because they're part of the Federation.
Anyone in Starfleet knew those women were a part of the secret organization, like the secret intelligence agency, because they, in their like little mind meld thingy, they mentioned this is part of their mission of investigating multiple ships. So they're all doing the hustle on all these different ships. So the point is for no one to know.
I do want to mention this one thing before we move on to the other characters, is that at the very end, Betazoid showed like a tablet which showcased this ship that they think that's destroying these other ships.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, you shared this one piece at the very end, but it's because at that point they felt comfortable sharing this information with Freeman. I think Freeman then showed that she's much more of a fighter than probably what they previously thought about her. Her leadership.
And they proved that the Cerritos and Starfleet, by extension, had nothing to do. Well, Freeman Freeman had no knowledge of what was going on. So maybe by extension, Starfleet also has no knowledge of what's going on. So, but we go into Talyn, who is actually the cause of all this emotional ups and downs on the Cerritos. And it's very interesting to see who is able to block out the crazy and who is able to, who just like gives into it. Because we see that both Freeman and Mariner, while they experienced some of the feelings themselves, didn't let themselves succumb to it, which is interesting because everyone else just sort of dived right in and was like, yes, let's go crazy. And both Mariner and Freeman were like, why are we going crazy? Like, hold up, wait, what's going on? Like, I want to do this, but that doesn't make sense. And it's like mother-daughter both have the mental fortitude to be like, okay, something's off. We don't know what is off, and I'm not going to give into it because this is not normal. So I thought it was interesting that both mother and daughter were able to block the psychic element that was coming from Talyn that she didn't know that was coming from her.
Yes, and it took me a while to understand really what was going on, and I could tell that the characters were acting abnormally because there was a dark under eye circle of for those characters. Because I do have to admit that when they hopped to scenes with Boimler, I noticed that they were not acting this way. Mm-hmm. So I was a little confused. So then I started thinking, well, it has to be around one particular spot on the ship or a set of characters. And of course, I was leading down the direction that this was because of the Betazoid trio, but it's the people that were around Talyn.
Yeah. And Talyn was on accident. She didn't mean to, but because she was feeling her ups and downs with her new positioning in life, which we all go through our ups and downs, and we all sort of feel out of sorts. It's just that Vulcans, this is why they keep their emotions on lockdown, because when they go crazy, it affects other people. And so her inner turmoil, her inner issues with her current position was projected on to everyone on the Cerritos. Well, everyone she came into contact with on the Cerritos, everyone she was in close proximity with on the Cerritos. And I also like the fact that when she realized it was actually her who was causing the issue, she was like, all right, well, how do I fix this? Right. There was no, it's not coming from me. How dare you? She was very rational to say, normally this does not affect someone of my age, but okay, let's come to terms. And I like how she came to terms with Mariner, and like Mariner helped her come to terms with her life and where she is. And I thought that was a cute little Mariner moment.
Oh yes, Mariner mentored her at that moment, and Mariner's younger than her, but has a lot of different experiences, so the two of them were able to connect there. Did you feel as though Talyn was having a quarter life crisis, like kind of feeling like homesick, and then like wondering about her career, wanted to be part of the Vulcan fleet, but still want to have a career?
So
and find her maybe it's more about finding her place. She wasn't sure of her place.
So I love how we always call it a quarter life crisis, because even in my own life, when I turned 25 and I was just like, it's a quarter life crisis, and people say it's a midlife crisis. We need to come up with a better term, like everyone in a sense, because it's not necessarily a crisis. It's more of I think we come to those quote unquote crisis when our life is not how we expected or how we envisioned it to be, because of how we think our life is supposed to be based on outside influences on what our life is supposed to be. So Taylin grew up Vulcan, was on the Vulcan ship, had all like her life was supposed to be a strict line in the Vulcan world, and it's not. And that doesn't necessarily mean it's bad. It just means your life is different than how everyone told you your life was supposed to be. So one of my personal things in life is to change that terminology for everyone, because I feel like we're only in crisis, or Taylin was only in crisis because her life wasn't the way other Vulcans said her life should have been. That did not mean her life was bad. So,
yes.
So it's like one of those, she was having a quote unquote quarter life crisis because everyone in the way that she grew up, everyone in her community when she grew up told her that there was something wrong about her. There's something different about her that she had to figure out and fix. When really, she was just broadening her mind and they couldn't handle that. So I think it's interesting that the world always calls it a crisis, when really it's just, we're pushing the norms, we're pushing the boundaries. And I think the crisis part comes in for us or at least for Taylin, when you realize you're okay with the change, but you're not supposed to be. Almost.
Right. The main reason why I mentioned quarter life crisis is because Mariner mentioned it, and she mentioned it I believe about twice in other episodes. So I'm wondering I'm wondering about this, and she has a long career ahead of her.
Yeah.
And it seems as though if going through, she meaning Taylin, is going through this now, and she has possibly, if she's 62, this is a quarter of her life, then 248 years ahead of her. Sarek and Spock both lived very long lives. So she could be like a big time ambassador. She has this in her to already, as what we see as fairly early in her career, compared to Sarek, who experienced this right before retirement. So he was over 200 years at that point when he was experiencing this. So I feel like she could be a prodigy of some sort. Vulcan. Well, Vulcans are already like prodigies. I can't even imagine a prodigy of a prodigy.
But yeah, it's like how like every generation wants you to be better because like they want you to like learn from their mistakes. And this time, like she's learning earlier, she's allowed to go on a different path, and it's okay to be on a different path. And there's no problem with being on a different path. You just have to accept it. So I agree with you. Look at that, people. We're agreeing. I always have to point them out because, that sometimes they're few and far between.
I do want to mention just one other thing. So one of the side effects to this Benzie syndrome is Alzheimer's. And I know that because I watched the Next Generation episode where Sarek was in denial about his Benzie episode, and then he had a mind meld with Picard. And so Mariner and Taylin had a mind meld together. And that actually means that they will be bonded forever. And that that can really change this friendship. Similar to Michael and Sarek also, their bond together. I think Michael and Spock had a bond as well, but had a mind meld, and so therefore a bond. But this will be interesting to see how their friendship evolves, knowing that they could see each other's futures and thoughts there.
I think they would be a great friendship duo. I'm excited to see what comes from it.
Yes, I think Tendi would be super jealous.
Tendi. We'll talk about Tendi later. Tendi and Rutherford are best friends. They need to stay best friends. Tendi, not everyone's going to love you the way you want to be loved. And that does not necessarily mean they don't love you. It just means sometimes some people click on better things. But whatever. All right. So one of the last parts of this episode was Boimler having his little, I don't even know how to call it. Like he made up his own pressure. Like no one else is putting this pressure on him. It's self-pressure. Like, you did this to yourself, dude. Like, I can't
But
even
he always
defend you
does
on
that.
this one. No one told you had to know everyone's name on the ship. No one told you that. But I like how the security team sort of got through him, or maybe tried to get through to him, on the fact that you're not safe if you're not whole. Like, almost like if you're going to break yourself and like stress yourself out to the point of breaking, you're not safe. And so the security team has other ways of keeping you safe, through charades and through slam poetry and through other things. But the moral of the story is you can do all these things to mentally relax, but when you need to be on, we saw the security team go ham on those 3 Betazoids. Granted, it was like 6 against 3, but still, the moment they needed to turn on, they turned on. And I liked that. And so we can relax. We don't always have to be considered on 100% of the time, but let me have my moment to relax and to decompress the way I need to. And that way, when I do need to be 100%, I can be 100%. I'm not distracted.
Right. But also, the charades is an opportunity to practice communication with different cultures, because one of the things you could see there is that the security force is made up of a diverse group.
Mm-hmm.
So it's important to just practice communication, be also on the same page, feel like you trust each other immensely. So that was really cool to see. I really think, though, the hero, the spark to this was Rutherford, because Rutherford noticed that Boimler was taking this way too seriously, and that he wasn't going to enjoy the party. He was worried about not knowing the names of everyone, but you could see them face to face instead of just on the tablet. And so Rutherford called Shax and really asked for intervention. And that's what sparked this. And that's a really good friend rate. Like, yeah, you need to join. How about a different party? You need some help.
Be like, hey, so I love you. I love you. You know this, but you ain't good. Like this. Let's run that back, because you're not healthy. You're not whole. And let's help you become whole, please. But at the end, as we stated earlier, we see that the Betazoids give Freeman the information on the ship they think is doing the attacks. We see that Taylin becomes more of herself and actually starts to like welcome her time on the Cerritos. We see that Tendi goes crazy a little bit because she missed the moment. And it's like one of those things where it's like when people try to make a moment happen, like you can't make a moment happen. It has to be organic to the situation. And she wanted to be there. She's like, oh, I want to be there next time. I love you, Tendi. I do. But you got to let moments happen organically. You can't force friendship.
Here's my concern with Tendi. And I really like her character. However, I feel as though there's some code switching. And by that, I mean that she was such a strong character like the last episode. And she's very fierce on her planet. But I feel like then she adopts some sort of passive, I want to be liked role.
Yeah.
With her friends and when she's part of the academy. So that's what I mean by code switching, is that she's different with her people versus when she's at work.
Yes, but I get why she does it. Because like her real self is herself on the Cerritos. Her real self, who she has to be on her planet, is by expectations. It's not necessarily who she wants to be, it's who she has to be because of her position. But they said at the end of that episode because like when Tendi was like, I didn't want y'all to meet the real me, and Mariner was like, but we know the real you. The real you is the you on the Cerritos. The you like everyone sort of like changes just a little bit when they're with their family, because it's like, look, I gotta deal with them, and I gotta like, it's just sometimes it's easier to go along to get along with your family. Sometimes doesn't necessarily mean everything you do with your family is who you are. Like I had to do that growing up because my parents were very active in the church. And so when I was with them, I had to be a certain person. But when I was with my friends, it was who I really was. So like, I get it. I see what you're saying, but I think it's in the opposite direction. She's who she really is on the Cerritos and with her family, even though that's who you're supposed to, like, even though that's where you're supposed to be the most relaxed, it's like she was born into a family that had to hold herself to a higher standard, and she never wanted to be that person.
Well, I'm thinking more about the hustler that we saw inside of that
little casino club thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
And how she, I don't want to say manipulated, but she played that game. There was the lady who was in charge of all the dancers. You could really see her strategize there. Mm-hmm. But then on some of these missions, when there was like this coffin thing, this box that they had to try to get for the doctor, she was much more assertive and she was able to get the job done. But then sometimes here, like, she wasn't as strong like Mariner and Freeman to see what was going on. It was more about being like...
Everyone who's grown up having to have two different parts of themselves understand this. So you're very lucky that you haven't had to grow up to be two different parts of yourself. So consider it a blessing. You don't really get it. You don't really get it. But it's like, who she is with her friends is who she really is. That is the Tindy. That is Tindy.
Okay.
Who she is with her family is the role that she has to play. And who she is on her home planet or around other Orions who know her legacy and know her stature is who she has to be. So it's like, think of her like royalty. The prince and princess that we see on TV that's not who they are. That's just the role they have to play. But behind closed doors is who they really have to be. But yeah, no.
Speaking of character development, this episode we saw a stronger Freeman than what we've seen in a longer time. She was a much better captain than some of her other times where she just seemed weak and flaky.
Or like insecure. We didn't see any version of her that was like sort of insecure this episode. So I like that too.
I am looking forward to seeing like who's in charge of this mystery ship. I think it's some sort of Badgie or something like that, but I'm looking forward to it. But here's the thing. We're at episode 5.
Oh, wait, hold up. Don't you love these though? Don't you love the season arcs?
I do. I just don't like 1 minute of like scene. I like when the story continues, not like I feel like here I didn't really get any additional clues. It's just a quick like scene on a tablet. I need more clues. I do like the character development that we're seeing here for sure. They're much more of a growing team together. Even though this didn't have an away mission, I feel like there was other species brought on board that we learned more about. So I appreciate that. I like my longer stories.
Well, I am looking forward to knowing who is behind these attacks. I sort of want it to be someone new in the sense of I don't want to see Peanut Hamper again. I think in the previous episode you were like, maybe it's them, and I was like, I don't want to see her again. I don't want to see Badgie again. Or if I do, I don't want to see him in the same sense. I'm like, come on. Right. But it would be interesting if they were the one who was behind it, but like, how would they connect? But it's also just like, I feel like if it was them, they would have just gone straight after Starfleet or right after the Cerritos. So, which is why I don't think it's them, because I just would like to know who's after who is destroying all these ships, who's like destroying ships and taking names. I would like to know. We're learning a little bit more as Lower Deck is a little bit deeper.
But we're not supposed to take it too seriously.
But it's still a great show.
Exactly. They say.
I say, because I love this show. But as always, I'm Andrea.
I'm Moneca.
And live long and prosper.